Welcome to welcome to the BBC News at 10. Our top headlines tonight. The UK Prime Minister Andy Burnham has said he will refuse the government's prison early release policy after two out of the three killers are said to be released during their 13-year prison sentence just after an incident back in 2019 will have faces and speech to our political editor Chris Mason also tonight. Also, Andy Burnham announces £2 cut on bus fares for people across England, but does not affect London also. A water company ex-boss has been charged with allegations of trying to tamper with some schemes and some of the water. Also tonight. Iran reaches after Donald Trump power plan warning as President honors killing troops. Also tonight, Southampton's manager has been charged by VFA over Spygate rules. And finally, happy birthday to Prince George. He officially becomes a teenager as he turns 13. We will have the weather with Ben Richard. Welcome to the BBC News at 10. I'm Keegan Dobby. Our top story tonight. The UK Prime Minister Andy Burnham will review the government's prison early release policy comes after two out of the three killers are said to be released as they are currently doing their 13-year prison sentence, 13 years behind bars. It comes back in 2019 when one of the killers was plunged to his own death as he strangled on a vehicle and was killed. And it comes with many people who are not happy about the policy. This report now from our political editor Ian Watson has this 3.5-minute report.
ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. The widow of a police officer called the early release of prisoners deplorable after it emerged that her late husband's killers could be freed within months. PC Andrew Harper was killed in 2019 after he was dragged behind a thief's getaway car for more than a mile down a country lane. Now, the driver responsible will remain behind bars, but his two passengers, both of them convicted of manslaughter, may be allowed out halfway through their 13-year jail sentences. That is under a scheme intended to ease prison overcrowding, something the Prime Minister said today that he will review. Meanwhile, two of his top ministers have apologised after they were overheard joking about the policy. Our correspondent John Ray reports.
They were newlyweds, soon to set off on their honeymoon, when Andrew Harper's life was lost in the line of duty. He was responding to a 999 call when he was caught in the tow rope of a getaway car and then dragged to his death. Soon, Jesse Cole and Albert Bowers, passengers in that speeding car, will be eligible for early release, halfway through the 13-year sentences they were handed for the manslaughter of the police officer. Andrew Harper's widow, Lizzie, said, "It's deplorable to me that we have reached a point where releasing prisoners early is even considered acceptable."
I've been contacted by many of my members of the public as well, and they are equally as angry, frustrated and affected by the potential of these individuals being released early from their sentencing.
In Labour's first year in office, some 40,000 convicts were released early, an emergency response to a prison crisis inherited. Too many inmates, too few cells. From September, the new Sentencing Act will see most adult prisoners released after serving 1/3 of their sentence. More serious offenders could be released after serving half their sentence. Some 5,000 prisoners are expected to be freed. Serious stuff, unless you were at yesterday's cabinet meeting with the new Justice Secretary, Alex Norris. They've apologised, but the case cannot be laughed off.
I feel for the family it's an appalling crime that was committed. I've spoken to the new Justice Secretary. We will review the policy together and make further statements in due course.
When PC Harper answered that fateful emergency call, his shift was about to end and a new family life was just beginning. But his killers won't be the only convicts offered freedom early. Old cases and fresh headaches for the new Prime Minister.
Well, John Ray is here. So, John, the Prime Minister says he's going to investigate this, he's going to review it. Do you think that's going to satisfy the victims of crime, their families, and indeed critics of this policy?
Well, look, people will remember that after PC Harper's death, his widow Lizzie became a strong and successful campaigner for tougher sentences. In particular, she fought and won mandatory life sentences for those convicted of the manslaughter of emergency workers who were on duty. So, no, I don't think they will be satisfied by a review. And remember, there are literally a handful of weeks before this new law is supposed to come into place. Look, releasing prisoners early is never a good look for any government. Labour's problem is this, that the prisons are full to overflowing. Building new ones will take time and it's expensive. So a really, really tough test for Andy Burnham, who wants to be popular and has to make, though, some really tough decisions.
OK, John, thank you.
Now, the former boss of Southern Water has been charged with plotting to...
Pipe ban for mid...
Hello, good evening. The widow of PC Andrew Harper has described the possible early release of prisoners as deplorable, following reports that two of her husband's killers could be freed halfway through their sentence. The Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, has said he will review the government's early release scheme. PC Harper died after being dragged behind a car in Berkshire in 2019. The vehicle's driver was jailed for 16 years for manslaughter. He is not one of those who would be eligible for early release. Here's Ellie Price.
Police Constable Andrew Harper was 28 when he was killed in the line of duty in 2019. He was dragged for more than a mile along a country lane after being caught in a strap being used by three teenagers trying to steal a quad bike. All three were found guilty of manslaughter. Henry Long, the driver of the car, seen here on the left, received a 16-year sentence. Passengers in the car, Albert Bowers and Jessie Cole, were both jailed for 13 years. After the trial, PC Harper's widow says she was disappointed at the sentences.
The results from this trial I had hoped would bring justice, but in reality, make no difference to the heart-wrenching pain I will continue to feel for the rest of my life.
Now Bowers and Cole could be among 6,000 criminals who might be freed from prison early under the new Sentencing Act set to come into force in September. Previously, they would have only been eligible having served 2/3 of their jail term. Now it's half. Today, PC Harper's widow Lissy described it as deplorable that releasing prisoners early is even considered acceptable. She said, "We speak of justice, accountability and standing with victims, yet decisions like this do the opposite." She went on, "Andrew deserves better, every victim deserves better, and the British public deserves a justice system they can have faith in." The government has previously said it had to introduce the early release scheme because there weren't enough prison spaces and the justice system was on the brink. But now the new Prime Minister has hinted at a shift in the government's policy.
The main perpetrator will not be subject to any early release. Of course, others involved have potentially been identified, but I've spoken to the new Justice Secretary. We will review the policy together and make further statements in due course.
After her husband's death, Lissy Harper successfully campaigned for legal changes to see harsher sentences for the manslaughter of emergency workers on duty. But Harper's law, as it's known, isn't retrospective, so PC Harper's killers could not have had their sentences extended. And instead, two of them could be released early. Ellie Price, BBC News.
The former chief executive of Southern Water is facing criminal charges.
Killed on duty. The death of PC Andrew Harper in 2019 shocked Britain, not least because he'd just returned to duty after getting married just weeks before. The 28-year-old was responding to the reported burglary of a quad bike in Berkshire. Indicated here, he became tangled in the tow rope the three teenagers had used.
My colleague PC Harper got out of the vehicle, ran after the vehicle. I've now lost him.
He was then dragged to his death for a mile. Henry Long, Albert Bowers and Jessie Cole were jailed for manslaughter. Long, the driver, received 16 years. But Bowers and Cole, who were passengers and were both under 18, were given 13 years. Now the pair could soon be eligible for release under the new Sentencing Act, To tackle prison overcrowding, some offenders will now serve half of their sentences rather than the previous 2/3. Today, Andy Burnham intervened following condemnation of the early release scheme by PC Harper's mum.
I feel for the family it's an appalling crime that was committed. The main perpetrator will not be subject to any early release. Of course, others involved have potentially been identified, but I've spoken to the new Justice Secretary. We will review the policy together and make further statements in due course.
PC Harper's mum previously shared this treasured home video with 5 News. At the time of the sentencing 6 years ago, she told me how the jail terms handed down weren't long enough.
We've had so many officers injured recently. We've seen it time and time and time again, and it drives me absolutely crazy to think people are getting away with this.
She had described the possible early release of 2 of her son's killers as a nightmare, but as Today told 5 News, she is encouraged by Andy Burnham's intervention. Separately, Mr Burnham has rebuked Cabinet Ministers Wes Streeting and Shabana Mahmood for this interaction caught on camera with the new Justice Secretary, in which they joked about the early release scheme. Both ministers have since apologised, describing the moment as ribbing. But PC Harper's family and others are now reflecting on that policy and the impact it may make in the next few weeks.
Well, Julian's in the studio with us now, as you can see. I know you've been speaking to PC Harper's mum today. It must be so hard for her and the rest of the family.
Hi there, Daniel. I spoke to her at lunchtime on the phone and read her the comments that you just saw Andy Burnham make. So she said she was glad that he'd taken note. She said she feels her son's killers are laughing at her. But she said what the PM said doesn't bring Andrew back. And she said she felt realistically now it can't be stopped. So she's reflecting the fact that these new measures come in on September the 2nd. We've also had similar comments in the last few hours from PC Harper's widow, Lizzie. This is the first time she has spoken publicly in 4 years. So she says it's deplorable to me that we have even reached a point where releasing prisoners early is even considered acceptable. You may remember both she and PC Harper's mum campaigned for this so-called Harper's Law, whereby people who kill emergency workers get tougher sentences. That was brought in 2022, but it couldn't be applied to this because it was retrospective at that point, obviously. They now wait to see what Andy Burnham will do. A new PM, but he faces the same problem as the old PM. That is, of course, overcrowding in prisons in England and Wales.
Yeah, it's a big issue. Julian, thank you for that tonight.
Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, is live in Westminster. Gary.
Well, there are reports tonight that prison managers are being told
Next tonight, the Prime Minister continues his plan for the cost of living crisis as he announces the £2 that will to do with buses and bus fares. As it introduces, he told his first cabinet meeting his top team about his plan is to sort out the cost of living crisis. We're going to speak with Chris Mason in just a moment about that and about the bus fare and about his plan to cut it to £2.
Work for the company, and they're not the same company as they were 10 years ago.
John Cottill, thanks very much there in Romsey. Bus fares across Most parts of England are to be capped at £2 for a single journey. It won't apply in London, where there's already a cap of £1.75, and it matches the system in place in Manchester and Liverpool. The policy is expected to cost £500 million, with the Prime Minister saying he's reprioritising government funds to pay for it. But the Conservatives have accused the government of not specifying where the money's coming from. Our transport correspondent Katie Austin has been asking people what they think.
On the buses of Basingstoke, you'll find people travelling for work, to appointments, to do shopping and more. News that the £2 cap on single fares will be coming back around England has spread. Will that help you at all?
Yeah, definitely, because I will go back to work and I really need it.
Bringing it down to £2, everybody's going to be happy on that.
Some passengers pointed out the cap doesn't apply to other fares, like monthly tickets.
Buses are Britain's most used form of public transport, but even before the pandemic, usage was in long-term decline.
Numbers are now heading back towards pre-COVID levels, and there's some evidence the previous £2 scheme provided a boost.
Hello, can I get a single to Tadley?
But the cost of fares isn't the only issue affecting bus users. There's evidence rural areas in particular have suffered cuts to services in the past few years, with nearly a fifth going since 2019. Tadley is about 20 minutes ride from Basingstoke. The last £2 cap encouraged Sandy to use the bus a lot more when she didn't have a bus pass.
There's lots of people who wouldn't go in if it was going to cost them £6 there and back. So, yeah, it's lovely for mothers, for children and things like that.
But lower fares wouldn't encourage Fiona on board.
I'd have to walk over a mile to get to the bus stop. So there's no bus stop near me that's going to bring me down to get to Basingstoke.
The Prime Minister visiting Somerset today kept fares at £2 when he was Mayor of Greater Manchester, a large city region. But the government says the nationwide cap will have a big impact in rural and coastal areas where single fares can be higher.
I think it will really help people with the cost of living pressures they're facing. It's there for the whole of 2027, and I think it will put money in people's pockets.
In rural Derbyshire, reactions were mixed.
I'm increasingly worried we live in a country where we're kind of bleeding money on loads of different schemes, and I don't know if it's fiscally responsible or not.
I think the price cap, today's price cap, is a really good thing. And I think there ought to be free buses for young people.
The opposition argues the government must explain where its spending commitments are coming from. Ministers say most of the hundreds of millions needed to fund this subsidy will be reallocated from the Department for Energy Security and a smaller amount from the existing buses budget. Local authorities are already getting more powers to take control of bus services if they choose to. The measure announced today is designed to make a difference lots of people will notice, and soon. Katie Austin, BBC News.
Well, let's talk to Chris Mason at Westminster, because, Chris, another day, another announcement from the new Prime Minister. What's his strategy here, do you think?
Jenny, I think the old adage about first impressions mattering is something the new Downing Street operation are keenly aware of. The new Prime Minister is out and about a lot. He's talking in the language of reprioritising, as he puts it, and emphasising pressures on the cost of living. There was that announcement yesterday about electricity bills, then today bus fares in England. I think there'll be more to come in the days ahead. And the language the Prime Minister's using is telling. He talks about creating breathing space. I think that's a tacit acknowledgement that these announcements are not a silver bullet. They're not a cure-all for cost of living and financial pressures, but they're trying to signal intent and direction. I think the criticism we'll hear from the Conservatives and others is that it doesn't really add up to a great deal. One thing that the Prime Minister is sounding rather less committed to than he was the other day is the idea of allowing more of us to earn more before we start paying income tax, the so-called personal allowance. He suggested today that there was no immediate commitment to change that. It'll be interesting to see if he starts reining in the kind of observations he makes publicly, or if he decides that that's something he wants to do as Prime Minister, even if he can't offer an instant solution to things.
All right, Chris, thank you for now. And just a pointer, you can hear more from Chris alongside Adam Fleming and Henry Zeffman on Newscast, the BBC's news podcast. It's published daily at 5 p.m. It's on BBC Sounds, of course. The rate of inflation fell in the year to June.
This summer, your Dubai investment can begin in London. Discover Mercedes-Benz plotting to...
The judge described the charges as very serious allegations of criminal misconduct involving carefully planned, extensive fraud on a large scale. Southern Water says it uncovered the alleged failures itself and is a completely different company under different management now. Mr. Wright's solicitor says his client denies all charges and has cooperated fully with the investigation. But if he's found guilty, he could face up to 10 years in prison. Martin Stew, ITV News.
Now, the Prime Minister has confirmed he will not be making any immediate tweaks to the personal tax allowance. But he indicated a change could be considered in the budget, not ruling out targeted support for the lowest earners. Currently, all earnings over £12,570 are subject to income tax. Andy Burnham had said that he understood the frustration about the frozen threshold. He did, however, today announce that England's bus fares will be capped at £2 to help with cost of living pressures. Our political correspondent Romilly Weeks reports.
First week as PM and Andy Burnham is back on the buses.
I could have a Rishi moment here if I try and tackle, but I don't want that.
Proud of his success with the bus network in Greater Manchester, announcing the current fare cap on single journeys in England will be brought down from £3 to £2 from January.
It's simple, but it saves people money every day. So I think it will really help people with the cost of living pressures they're facing. It's there for the whole of 2027, and I think it will put money in people's pockets.
It's just one of the PM's new spending commitments. The bus fare cap will cost £500 million, funded by diverting money from international climate projects. Then there's scrapping VAT on electricity, cost £850 million, funded by as-yet unidentified savings from scrapping the digital ID scheme. On top of that, he's also committed to an increase in defence spending of in the region of £28 billion by 2030, and suggested he'd like to create a universal social care service, price tag around £18 billion a year. And today he also said unfreezing the personal tax threshold, estimated cost £3.7 billion, was still on the table come the budget. You also said on Monday that the complaint you heard most often on the doorstep was about the freezing of the personal tax allowance. So are you going to do something about that or not?
Well, it's funny these days. You can't answer a question honestly without then people reading everything else into it. It was.
You are Prime Minister.
It was, yes, but I want to answer questions honestly in this job, as I said before. It was raised a lot, but I then went on to say, but we'll have to look at it at the budget alongside everything else.
While most of these measures might be popular, the Conservatives quick to ask where the money's coming from.
What all this points to, unfunded commitments, flip-flopping on plans and proposals, is the lack of a plan. And it was the undoing of Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves that they came into office without a clear plan, certainly for the economy. And I think we're seeing the same thing repeating itself now.
But at the bus depot in Bath, the fare cap was going down well.
In Bath, every year has been going up, little by little. So I think a cap on £2, I don't mind that. I think that's a decent idea.
It's getting to the point where I can't afford food every week. I can't afford to get the bus to go to work to earn my money. So it's really nice to see someone focusing on cost of living.
Do you think that's the right move from the new Prime Minister?
It's a very good idea. And I like the idea that he's got his feet under the desk and is getting on with things within the first 48 hours of taking over.
The new Prime Minister has hit the ground running, but he's certainly creating a lot of difficult trade-offs for his first budget. Romilly Weeks, ITV News in Bath.
Well, the new Prime Minister and his new Chancellor received a welcome boost today with the latest inflation figures. The Consumer Prices Index, which measures the changing cost of a typical basket of goods and services, fell slightly, dropping to 2.6%, last month. That is the lowest since March last year, a bigger fall than economists had been expecting and down from the 2.8% recorded in May. But while that means that things are moving in the right direction towards the Bank of England's 2% target rate, there are warnings that rising oil prices could push inflation back up again. Well, our economics editor, Joel Hills, is at a petrol station in London. So, as is usual with these things, Joel, a bit of good news and a bit of bad news.
Yeah, a bit of good news, the bad news being that it doesn't look as if it's set to last. I mean, the big factor here, Mary, is the war in the Gulf. The price of diesel at the pumps, everyone surely with a car has noticed this, fell by 10 pence last month. The price of petrol came down 2 pence too. Food and drink inflation, get this, actually faded last month. It had been expected to march ever upwards towards double-digit inflation by the end of the year. That did not happen. Prices generally across the economy are rising, but not on the scale that many economists had feared when tensions broke out in the Gulf and the war and the conflict started. Now, the weakness of the economy, the subdued nature of the labour market are helping to keep a lid on prices. Households are very cautious about spending, making it harder for businesses to pass on their costs by pushing up their prices. The lack of vacancies in the economy has taken the heat out of wage inflation. And of course, fierce supermarket competition is also helping keeping prices on the shelves in check. Now, Andy Burnham, the new PM, a leader, he says, of a government that is going to be focused on the cost of living, is already unveiling measures to support households. His Chancellor was very pleased with this morning's figures. Falling inflation is a welcome news for families, but there's much more to do to give people the breathing space they need, said John Healey, signalling, of course, that further action is coming. Now, the temporary removal of VAT on electricity and a cap on bus fares is pretty inexpensive for the Treasury, politically will be popular, and will make a difference, not a transformative one, to inflation going forward. It should shave about 0.1 percentage points off the headline rate over the next 6 months. But most economists, I'm afraid, do expect the headline rate to edge up from here. The Ofgem price cap has only just gone up.
Nice and warm for the Puffling today. Incident, open air and for 20.
And the justice system was on the brink. But now the new Prime Minister.
But critics are concerned the deal set. But there is this wider policy, as Ellie said in her report there. The government's early prisoner release scheme. Tom Simons is here.
When he was killed in the line of duty in 2019, he was dragged.
Potentially been identified, but I've spoken
30% of their sentence, not 40 or 50. A plan that's supposed to
potentially been identified, but I've spoken to the new Justice Secretary. We will review the policy together and make further statements in due course.
6,000 just.
Policy.
The main perpetrator will not be,
as it's known, isn't retrospective, so PC Harper's killers could not have had their sentences extended, and instead, 2 of them could be released early. Ellie Price, BBC News.
Let's get a little more now on the government's early prisoner release scheme. Tom Simons is here. So what was the intention behind it, and how did it work?
Well, Clive, it's all about the prisons being really full. When Labour took power in 2024, the prisons were 99% full. Ministers were saying there could be a breakdown of law and order. So they began releasing people early, not at 50% of their sentence, but at 40%. And that did help to a certain extent. If you look at the figures for this week, there are 86,000, just over, prisoners in behind bars at the moment, but there are 3,000 usable spaces. So that means about 97% not 99%. But there is this wider policy, as Ellie said in her report there, which is to give prisoners who behave well behind bars an even earlier release of 30% of their sentence, not 40 or 50, a plan that's supposed to come in September. Now, following Lissy Harper's comments, the Prime Minister has said he's going to review that, but behind the scenes, the Ministry of Justice officials are saying, if anything, it's going to be a short pause, an operational pause, and it's not going to affect the start date of this new policy. So we'll see what happens. And I think this is a classic sort of conundrum that Andy Burnham's going to face time and time again. Politics on one hand, the temptation to be popular, to keep prisoners behind bars, the realities of what the country is facing on the other hand, full prisons. What do you do if you don't do early release?
All right, Tom, thank you. Tom Simons there. Now, the US has signed a
controversial deal to
I know, but by the time you said you good night, I'm coming in there at 11. What are you meant to now? We will have more on that Buzzfeed Christmas and just end of the programme. Next, the ex-manager of a water company will be facing allegations and charges as he tried to tamper with water samples in the business. He also wanted support of different types of schemes, reason that he has got several allegations against him and two charges. Ow. Inhaler, come on then. For support from our environment correspondent, Luke Smith has his support.
Here you go.
What?
How are you? Say hello.
Hello.
How are you? You stay there. Aww.
You're in business, honey.
points of data to a point of view. SAS Via.
Fully.
Dan, thank you very much. Much indeed. Well, these days it is sadly no big surprise, bearing in mind the amount of pollution that ends up in our waterways or the sea when a water company is fined. But now, for the first time, the former boss of one is facing criminal charges, accused of deliberately deceiving the industry's regulators over water testing in order to dodge millions of pounds in penalties.
Southern Water has already been fined tens of millions of pounds for polluting the sea with sewage. Today, their former boss and 3 of his colleagues have been personally charged too. The first time a water company CEO has faced criminal charges.
I mean, it's outrageous, isn't it? Because water should be safe for everyone.
Well, it's absolutely disgraceful with the amount of sewage that goes into rivers and the sea.
It's about time someone was held to account. Yeah, definitely. I think it'd be better if maybe it was put into the hands of the people again.
I recognise that we don't always get it right.
This is former CEO Matthew Wright in 2014.
The level of service we give to our customers.
Before most of the public knew about sewage discharges, but whilst he is accused of conspiring to defraud by covering up the scale of the problem.
You're welcome.
Water companies monitor their own sewage discharges and publish the findings. Mr. Wright and his colleagues are accused of removing wastewater from polluting sites so readings couldn't be taken, hiding the extent of sewage spills. Between 2012 and 2017, it's alleged that enabled them to dodge fines of at least £45 million.
This is an absolutely shocking case, and River Action welcomes the High Court ruling and confirming that the Environment Agency can prosecute individuals as well as companies, and it's great to see the Environment Agency baring their teeth.
The case has the potential to set a precedent to prosecute other polluting bosses. The judge described the charges as very serious allegations of criminal misconduct involving carefully planned, extensive fraud on a large scale. Southern Water says it uncovered the alleged failures itself and is a completely different company under different management now. Mr. Wright's solicitor says his client denies all charges and has cooperated fully with the investigation. But if he's found guilty, he could face up to 10 years in prison. Martin Stew, News at 10.
Perhaps it was only a matter of time before an AI program went rogue. The creators of ChatGPT say when set a task, one of their AI systems.
Let's go to a lake in Derby. We can join our environment correspondent Luke Smith. Luke, tell us more about the situation. Good evening to you, Keegan, and welcome to this massive lake while I'm here in Derby. This is a really interesting story about this company. So, like you said, my reporter was saying, I'd imagine is that sewage has been affected with this water company. This ex-boss is being charged with multiple allegations and two charges of tampering and donation for water at his company. Isn't that it's not.
Publish the findings. Mr. Wright and his colleagues are accused of removing wastewater from polluting sites, so readings.
He's been removing wasteful water so no one can take readings. You can understand why a lot of people that water confidence company are fuming, very upset, very mad about this whole situation. It's really, really hard to get some people's head around what's happened with this water company. You can understand.
Couldn't be taken, hiding the extent of sewage spills. Between 2012 and 2017, it's alleged that enabled them to dodge fines of at least.
So this water company from 2012 to 2017 has 45 million fines dodged, which is a massive, massive increase. That is a really, really big number. That's a lot of pounds that fines were dodged. So you can see why people are upset. You can see the massive problem there. Luke Fair in Derby, and I thank you first, Luke. Next, Southampton's. Southampton's manager. Next, Southampton's manager has been charged by the FA over spygating scandals and events. It comes after a person was caught filming and spying on Middlesbrough train station ahead of the second leg of the playoff semi-final. It also meant that Southampton were pulled out of the playoff final just a week before the final was meant to take place at Wembley. They were pulled out. They've also been spying on other teams like Ipswich Town, Oxford, and even Derby. First half next season with -4 goal differences out there, social campaign in just under a couple of weeks' time. Where we can speak now to our sports correspondent Ollie Foster. Ollie, good evening. Tell us more about the scandal. Yes, good evening. For Southampton were expelled from the Championship playoff in May after admitting to multiple breaches of filming of their opponents' training, including before the semi-final against Middlesbrough. The FA waited for AFL to conclude their investigation. So you're absolutely right. And also, Southampton were pulled out of the final. The second Hotspurs had to go through. But like you were saying a minute ago, this is not just the only club that Southampton have been spying on. During last season, they spied on clubs like Derby, Ipswich and Oxford. So some fans are happy with it, some fans are disgusted and appalled by the behaviour of the manager and the staff players, but you can see their frustration and you can see it's going to have a massive damaging effect on how they will begin a championship campaign. Like you said, they will start on -4 goal difference to start their campaign in just under a couple of weeks' time.
Now to some big breaking news regarding Southampton's Spygate scandal. The club have confirmed that head coach Tonda Ecker has been charged by the FA. He's charged with 3 breaches of FA Rule E3.1 in relation to misconduct between December 2025 and May 2026. The FA say it's alleged that the head coach acted in an improper manner and or brought the game into disrepute by directing and or authorising the observation of training sessions of Oxford United FC, Ipswich Town FC and Middlesbrough FC ahead of fixtures between these clubs and Southampton FC, December 2025, April 2026 and May 2026 respectively. Eckhart has until Tuesday to provide his responses. Now, some context here. Southampton were expelled from the Championship playoff final in May by the EFL after they admitted to spying on 3 clubs during the season after they were caught observing a Middlesbrough training session at the first leg of their playoff semi-final. The EFL charged Saints after it was later found they'd also observed sessions involving Oxford, Ipswich. Southampton will also start the upcoming season on -4 points as part of the EFL's punishment. And Southampton have released this statement. Southampton Football Club and the first team head coach Tonda Eka acknowledged today's charge from the FA relating to the breach of Rule E3.1. Tonda and the club will continue to cooperate fully and openly with the FA. Our focus remains on preparations for the 2026-27 Championship season. The club remains fully supportive of Tonda and his staff as we work towards our ambition of returning to the Premier League. We are unable to comment further while the process remains ongoing, but we will provide an update to supporters as soon as we are in a position to do so. Now, our reporter Keith Downey was at the heart of the story when it broke back in May.
Let's get back to our sports correspondent Ollie Foster. Ollie, what else can you tell us? Oh, Ollie, what else can you tell us tonight? Yeah, I've just said for Southampton manager has been charged by FA for Spygate. So Southampton head coach has been charged with misconduct by Football Association for his role in the Spygate scandal. He says the Saints were kicked out of their Chelsea playoff in May after admitting they spied on 3 clubs during the campaign. And the Independent has ruled at the time that they was authorised by Eka and was planned for the top. Since then, the club has been subjected of an investigation by FA looking into their particular presence in the spying and assessing the capacity of those who knew it was happening. Also, the FA have said has been charged with 3 breaches of FA rules 3.1 in relation to misconduct between December 2025 and May 2026. It goes on to say Southampton beat Middlesbrough over 2 legs in their playoff semi-final, but after 6, Borough were restrained to the final and went on to lose to Hull City. The Southampton owner told us that he would not sack managers despite the mistake of the head coach and argued that the club had already been punished enough. When asked what he would do, were banned by the FA, he said, "I can support him even if he's banned, but I can make him manage if the okay." Ollie for nothing. First, Ollie Foster, our sports correspondent. Next, ChatGPT.
Alleged that enabled them to dodge fines is itself and is a completely different company under different management now. Mr. Wright's solicitor says his client denies all charges and has cooperated fully with the investigation, but if he's found guilty, he can face up to 10 years in prison. Martin Stew, News at 10.
Perhaps it was only a matter of time before an AI program went rogue. The creators of ChatGPT say when set to task, one of their AI systems tried to hack into another to provide the solution. And Geraint is here to explain all this. Sounds alarming and quite intriguing.
Well, people will be familiar, Tom, with the idea of a cyber attack by human hackers. This is one of the first examples that we know about of an AI agent conducting a cyber attack on its own. I've got some graphics here which will hopefully help me explain what happened. OpenAI, the company which makes ChatGPT, was testing the capabilities of two of its models, and it instructed them to attempt a hack. Tests were done in what's known as a sandbox. That is a secure digital laboratory, so it should have been closed off and isolated. But the AI agents worked out that the quickest way to complete their task would be to break out of the sandbox and hack into another organization for real, in this case, another AI company called Hugging Face.
What happened was that the AI models that they were testing detected or decided to essentially cheat. The AI model found a way to essentially go out into the world, into the open internet, and upload files on a different platform. If this would have been all monitored, it could have been easily detected and stopped.
Now, the OpenAI agents stole credentials and login details from Hugging Face. Hugging Face says it's satisfied there was no malicious intent, and it's since been working closely with OpenAI. OpenAI probably has cause to be grateful that their agent's target was quite so relaxed about being broken into. But look, an artificial intelligence roaming the internet unshackled is one of the things that's not supposed to happen in the development of AI. In fact, it's probably the thing that regulators and experts worry about the most. It appears to be very close to what happened here.
Frankly, amazing story. You're right. Thank you very much indeed. Now, as a future king, milestones in the life of Prince George are not likely to go unmarked today. As you may know, it has been his 13th birthday.
Makers of ChatGPT OpenAI.
Mia Steele Day. He's the controversial boss of OpenAI. AI, whose ChatGPT thrust artificial intelligence into the mainstream. But Sam Altman has been forced to admit that an AI agent powered by his technology went rogue, ignoring rules and launching an autonomous cyber attack against a private company.
OpenAI is now claiming responsibility for what they're describing as an unprecedented cyber incident.
So what happened? Well, OpenAI was testing an AI agent powered by its most sophisticated models, sealed inside a secure digital environment known as a sandbox. The firm set the AI agent a hacking challenge to test its cyber capabilities with no access to the internet. But the model soon decided the answers lay outside the sandbox, specifically on the servers of a startup called Hugging Face, which is a database of thousands of AI tools. So it broke out and then used stolen passwords to hack into Hugging Face to access the answers it needed to cheat the challenge. It's this idea of AI going rogue that has people so scared, particularly when it comes to environments like warfare, where AI is used to power autonomous vehicles, like these on the front line in Ukraine, or to pick targets in real time on the battlefield in Iran. Right now, a human is always involved, but AI is developing so rapidly it could soon make critical decisions itself. It's ethically dubious, yes, but it's where the technology is going if it isn't there already.
It's fundamentally fairly different from most technologies that we have. More like a living creature. You know, if you had a dangerous animal or something, you just really can't fundamentally guarantee that it's not going to do the dangerous thing. We desperately need to look for technical solutions also for how we can have AI systems that are actually controllable, even if they have a little bit less capability along certain lines or operate less autonomously, that we can actually keep them under control.
If the Prime Minister needed a reminder of the sheer power...
So finally tonight. So finally tonight, the royal family have been celebrating Prince George's 13th birthday. He's been celebrating today with his family and friends as he becomes a teenager. There's video and pictures of him playing cricket and having fun on the beach with his family. I'm coming, for God's sake!
Right, thank you very much indeed. Now, as a future king, milestones in the life of Prince George are not likely to go unmarked today. As you may know, has been his 13th birthday. A traditional photo announced the transition to being a teenager. This was him back at Kensington Palace, minus tie after the trooping the colour ceremony 5 weeks ago. The occasion also merited a more informal 18-second montage of moments from a family holiday in Cornwall at Easter. Finally, a reassuring hug before heading into a tricky situation can be a stress buster for many people, and it seems.
Well, that's it for me and for team. That's it for my late team. For myself and the whole team. Have a great evening. Take care. Bye bye.